Hello, my friends, and welcome back to PlayStation Livecast. This is the moment that you have been waiting for, or at least I have been waiting for. I have been so excited for this segment. I'm joined by Sarah from DICE. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for being here. Nice to meet you. We are talking about Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
Yes.
Which you kind of had a grand unveiling of sorts recently at your press conference and then again. And so I just want to hear a little bit about the game, and then we can get into specifics later.
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
So Mirror's Edge Catalyst is inspired by the first Mirror's Edge that was released back in 2008.
Yes, amazing game.
Yes, it's a fantastic game. So we are building on the foundation of that, but we are focusing on telling Faith's origin story. And this is because we really want to make sure that she has like a proper character development. So she's not going to be the same person when she starts the game as when she ends the game.
Sure.
And we think that she's such a cool character, so we really want to build her up, and we want to tell our players more about her, like what are her motivations, what does she stand for, and what's happened to her in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also really wanted to make sure to use the fantastic movement system that we have in a different kind of way. So we've sort of made sure that we have we're building a city and not a bunch of different levels. So you're going to be able to, it's actually affecting the game quite a lot, because imagine going from point A to point B. It's a very different experience than having an area where you can traverse it in any given direction. So it's been quite a challenge actually to develop that, but we have something now that I think we nailed it, and I think it's going to be a really it's been amazing these 3 days. See people play it. People seem to really enjoy that aspect of the game.
Awesome. Okay, please, no, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I'm just like talking. And also, how we have worked on the movement and adapted that to the more free roaming, but also how we worked with integrating the unique first-person combat into the fluidity of the movement. So you're no longer picking up guns. You're using like your physical self and your momentum and the environment on taking enemies out.
Okay, so there is a lot of stuff that you just gave me to talk about, but I want to back it up a little bit to when you were telling us about the story, because this is really cool, especially for people that didn't play the original. Giving Faith an origin story of sorts is opening the game up to all these people that may have not played the original, which is a damn shame if you didn't play the original, because it's amazing.
Yes, do it.
But anyway, so that's really cool. So that was basically, that wasn't only like a choice for story, but that also makes it really accessible to new players, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, and we want to make sure that Faith is someone that you care about, and we're not. We call the game sort of not a reboot, but a rebirth of Faith.
Perfect.
So it's not a prequel in the sense that it doesn't exactly lead up to all the plot line that is happening in the first game, but it does build Faith up as to the character that she is. So in the beginning, she will be a bit of a young, careless runner who's doing runner jobs. You're actually going to get to feel what it's like to be a runner in the City of Glass. You never really got to feel what it was like to be a runner in the first game, because it went straight into the plot line and all these things happened. Now you will get to feel that, and then stuff will happen here as well that will affect how the authorities see runners, and the feel of the city will change over the course of Faith's story, so we'll actually adapt and change along with her development, and then there will be these moments where she actually decides that she needs to step up and start fighting back, because what's happening is not good, and she finds all these little secrets. So I think it's going to be very exciting for people.
I kind of wish that it was just her hanging out and like free running the entire game.
Yeah, but you're going to have that.
I guess you need to have that
well.
plot in there as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much detail you can go into about that sort of open world design you guys are doing, but this is huge, because already the original Mirror's Edge, it felt so sublime, just like moving from moment to moment and kind of really melding into the environment. But here your team is making this giant city. And I don't know how much you're allowed to talk about how much freedom you have in that city, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot.
So you're going to open up more and more of the city as you play through the story. So you're going to start with a small portion. And this is really to make sure that the game also is accessible to new players. So we're not going to just throw you in there and give you everything at once. We're going to...
go.
Yeah, and go. And, the first game was pretty hard and pretty frustrating for some people. So we're really trying to make sure that, we get rid of that component. And we are focusing really hard on making it a little bit more accessible while still being a rewarding skill.
Yeah.
So the movement has all these little systems that allows you to, if you don't do the perfect timing, you might grab onto the ledge. You will lose your momentum and speed. So, but you still won't fall down and die. Right. But for the skilled players, they're gonna time it right. So they're just gonna flow a lot better, like through the city, and get a lot better times,
right.
and just get a more fluid experience. But still, you can play it. And we've worked a lot to adapt the movement to the more free roaming type of experience. So, for example, we needed to make it freer so you can actually navigate this. So, an example of that can be that in the first game you could springboard on certain objects, and in Mirror's Edge Catalyst you can springboard on any object of a certain height. So that gives you a lot of options in how you move around.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you have this giant, massive environment, I mean, what kind of difficulties do your designers face in trying to make it all flow well, but it still has to look like an actual city?
That is actually been,
how does that work?
That's been the biggest challenge on this whole project. It's been nailing that, making sure that we can create spaces that are fun to traverse in multiple directions, but still looks like
like a living, breathing city.
Like an environment that could exist. It's not like someone has placed all this random weird stuff here, but it
there's
needs
just a ramp in the middle of the road.
Exactly. What's that here for? And that actually happens sometimes when the designers and artists don't communicate super well. That can happen. Like the designer plays something, and then the artist come in and is like, but this doesn't look like anything that could exist in the real world, and then they have to iterate on it. But we've found a way of working where the designer and the artist, like the level designer and artist for each different area and each mission and stuff like that, interiors that you go into for missions and go out again. They are working super tight together. So they're sitting together and they are iterating on it together. So they do all of these little tweaks together all the time. Yeah. And that is how that is the only way we could work to get to this, because in Mirror's Edge every object you see is there for gameplay. Look at Battlefield, where there's a lot of terrain and you're just moving on the terrain, but the gameplay is actually about shooting or driving. But in Mirror's Edge, exactly. But
I had to pantomime flying for some reason, like if the audience didn't know what that was. Anyway.
So in Mirror's Edge, like every object that is there for a reason, and you can move on it, you can interact with it in some kind of way, and that it's tricky. Level design is tricky.
No, absolutely.
But it's when we nail it, it is so rewarding. You should come by and play it for yourself.
I will. I need to. Yeah. I know. She's harassing me on camera. Yep. I have to play this game. But that's one of the things that impresses me most about games that have such a broad scope, and they're just huge, because your team needs to be so collaborative in being able to work together, and like you said, like the designer and the artist iterating back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, is your team like just constantly just meshed together and working? I mean, do teams have to break off and do certain things at certain times? Like, how is it like inside the studio?
We work in smaller teams within the team. So we have, the city team or the level team that are actually building this whole city, and within that we have smaller team that are focusing on the different areas and on the different interiors, and so. And then we have a gameplay team which is focusing on the core mechanics, and like the movement and the combat and stuff like that. Okay. And we have a UX team and an online team, and so it's actually just a lot of small teams within the big team.
That's amazing. Yeah. All right, well, before we run out of time, I want to make sure we get to everything. We covered the big city, we've covered combat, movement. What am I missing? I just want to make sure we get to everything.
Those are really the big components. Okay. Like, it's all about faith. I mean, we really wanted to build this game on what was really good from the first game, and I think that is Faith. She's an awesome, cool, kick-ass protagonist. The beautiful style and tone of the game, like the art style and the audio, we're 100%. Really building on that, taking that to the new generation. With Frostbite, it looks, I think it looks even more amazing. Yes. And
it's visually spectacular.
It is.
Even the original game, which came out, so many years ago, it still looks really good.
Very beautiful and very different from a lot of gritty experiences, which are cool. Also, I just like that there is something else as well. And then, of course, the movement, the first-person parkour-inspired movement, which is still today pretty unique, and just making that even more fluid, more free, adding moves to it, and then integrating the combat into that. Those are really the key components of what we've been focusing on for this game, and I think, I hope that it's so fun to see that now that people are actually playing it on the show floor.
And you can see the reactions.
They seem to like it, and we've been working on this for a long time, and we've been like so anxious, and then we put it out there, people play it, and they like it, and then it's like, oh, we're so happy. So this has been a great E3 for us. We're super excited.
Now, I want to give a quick shout out before we wrap up.
Yeah.
And that my favorite moment from the original one, which again, everyone needs to play, Faith embracing her sister at the beginning of the game, which kind of sets off this series of events, which propels the whole game forward. That moment, kudos to your team, because that I still think fondly back to that, and I think people really need to experience it. So good job.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure it was all you, and it wasn't a huge effort from the team. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Mirror's Edge is coming to PS4 February of next year, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
February
and
23rd.
I should say Mirror's Edge Catalyst.
Mirror's Edge
is
Catalyst,
coming to PS4.
February 23rd
Awesome.
next year.
PlayStation